It's time for the Sports Blitz, the only live-streamed local sports show in Arkansas, with all the latest on the sports stories that matter to you.
Welcome in to the Sports Blitz on a Monday. Been a little while since we've had a show, so we're glad to be back here to bring you the latest in local, state, and national sports. Mark Freeman and Maddie Lassiter in the Cogswell Motor Studios with a famous football coach here, Mr. Weldon Braxton, who was at coaching clinic this weekend, and now you're even bigger. You're a bigger time name now.
Well, I don't like to brag. First of all, I was disappointed that we didn't have a show. I had a little bit of break. I was about to tune in on my Ustream app, and I found out we didn't have a show. I was like, ugh.
Yeah,
I was disappointed.
Had a couple meetings, and it actually worked out to where, since you weren't here, I didn't have to worry about rescheduling the meetings. So.
Well, I'm glad, but I'm glad to be back. Had a good time in Minneapolis, as I always do every time I'm there, and learned a little bit and mingled. You know how to play the game up there when you're meeting with colleagues. But I'm happy to be back here. Sounds like a good weekend. We're going to look at some Arkansas Razorback stuff, baseball season. We're not talking a whole lot about it. They're still playing some non-conference softies, but as the season goes on, we'll watch this pitching staff. We'll see if the offense has improved. I know that's something here in Arkansas we're looking to see. And in the basketball team, they've put some wins together back in the NCAA tournament discussion. Not ready to say they're back in by any stretch of the imagination, but they're feeling good as they go into their game this week against Kentucky, Mark. So we'll look at that as well as the combine.
Well, yeah, here we got a caller coming in here in just a second. Like you said, well, there's a whole lot of stuff we got to get to. Razorbacks now 6-0 in baseball. Hey, no Razorback team lost this weekend. That's always a good weekend. The basketball team got a win on the road. Baseball team 3-0 against Eastern Illinois. Now 6-0 on the year, and we're going to look at local sports because we've got some regional tournament action for the 4A teams. We've got high school basketball, just conference action for the 5A teams. Russellville got a big win over Little Rock Hall, so we're going to talk a little bit about all that. But we're joined now on the line by Clarksville head boys basketball coach, Tony Davis. Coach Davis, how you doing?
Good, man. How you doing this morning?
Doing very well. I hear a little bit of a happiness in your voice there. It's got to be because you guys got a big win against Harrison on Friday night.
Well, yeah, anytime you can get a 5A West win this time of the year is a positive. I probably it's kind of funny as I get older. The losses make me feel better, but the losses make me feel worse. So I don't know. They hurt. So as down as I was after last Tuesday, I guess I'm definitely up a little more than that today.
Yeah, we haven't talked in a little while, but you guys have had some ups and downs so far. Many more ups than downs for you guys, but it's tough knowing that you guys went all last year in the 5A West without a loss. Now you've got a couple of them in this season, but you're still right there in the thick of things. And you told me before the season started, we were down there to visit, and you told me about how much deeper the 5A West is this year, and it's proven to be just that.
Well, no doubt. I guess people have gotten spoiled to what they expect from us. It's one of those deals. We went undefeated last year, but no team had done that since '98. So it was an aberration of some sort. And this year, like I said, the league is tough. I mean, realistically, you look at this standings board in my office, and 6 of the 8 teams could easily be in the playoffs. And Huntsville and Shiloh are as good as anybody. We would contribute to that because we went to Shiloh a couple weeks ago and we're down 10 at the half. These guys can play. Everyone's well coached. That's probably the thing hurts my team because we're probably not as well coached as other teams in the league. But luckily, we've got enough talent to overcome what my shortcomings are.
Come on now.
Hey, Coach, it's always good to talk to you. We look at your team, and Mark talked about some of the the ups and downs you guys have had. But you look at with teams who rebound well, teams that will try to get into your bench because of your depth issues. You look at all the things and the challenges that your team has. Where are you in sort of compensating for that as you round into shape for a state tournament?
Well, the thing that's been our calling card all year long has been our defensive intensity. When we guard, it's either full court or half. It doesn't matter which one. But when we guard, we're pretty good. That's kind of what we told. Now, it seems like we get a little quicker defensively for making shots. But we try to let that be the constant. Even the 2 games we lost, Morrison, we missed 20 layups, against Bologna last Tuesday night. We go 2 for 23, from the 3-point line. I guess that's poor coaching on my part when we can't make shots. So that's one of those deals that I've got to get better at and give us better looks and better decisions in those areas. But our confidence has been defense. I mean, night in and night out, the other team knows they're going to have to work for everything they get in the half court. And, we feel like that's the one thing we can dictate and can control.
Well, I want to look at you talked about the matchups in the 5A West, how good it is this year. You've got a huge game on Tuesday, tomorrow night against Morrilton at home. You get the return trip from those guys after what, and I was there, and it was a rough go with 20 missed layups, airballed free throw. You had so many things go against you. I'm sure your guys are chomping at the bit to get Morrilton at your place.
Well, we don't, hopefully, knock on wood, we don't lose many here. I think in the 5 years I've been here, we've lost 2, maybe 3, and over the course of and this was a good program, a great program long before I got here. So, these guys know what's at stake. They know what happens when teams come to Pennsylvania, they know that they're going to have our best effort, and that's what we know. And Morrilton, they're a quality club. Coach Tipton did a tremendous job. I wish I could just go buy some popcorn, sit up in the stands, and watch the game tomorrow night.
You're gonna be seeing a good one, and beyond the implications of the fact that you can get a team back that's already beaten you once, this game is going to go a long way. Now you've got obviously Friday, and I guess next Tuesday also, or is Friday's the last conference game against Huntsville, right?
Yes, Friday's it. We got 2 games this week, and kind of we've alluded to in the past, we control our own destiny. We've dropped a couple, but if we can win tomorrow night and win Friday night, we give ourselves a shot. We're going to be 1 or 2 no matter what. I was talking to Coach Tipton this morning, and I don't know which one's a better draw. If you're the 1, we play Tuesday, but if you win that one, you get to play Jacksonville. Or if you're 2, and if you're 1, you play today in the second round. If you're 2, you play Jacksonville. It's kind of like last year when here we did everything we could to win the league, and all of a sudden, Jacksonville's on our side of the bracket, But you've got to beat them all to win it, and I know we'll have a tall task against anyone we play, but I know that they will also. So I think we're a pretty solid basketball club.
Yeah, I was looking at the 5A state bracket, and it is rough because you've got if you're the 1 seed, you do get that day break. I think you play Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday if you're the 1 seed, but if you're the 2 seed, you get Jacksonville in the second round, like you said. So that's going to be, and that's saying you can beat one of those teams from I guess it was the East. So it's going to be a rough state tournament regardless. But like you mentioned, you're going to have to play them all anyway. I want to look at the implications of tomorrow night's game because I don't want to take Friday for granted going to Huntsville. It's always a tough place to play. But say you can win that game. Tomorrow really comes down to a couple of different things. Not only can you win the game and lose the number 1 overall seed in the conference, but there are some strategic things that you're going to have to take into account too when you think about at the end of a game. I know this is going a long way. At the end of a game against Morrilton, you could win the game by I think it's 4 points or fewer and still get the number 2 seed. How do you approach that kind of thing, Coach Davis?
Well, what we're trying to do is this, and you got to look at the tiebreaker scenarios, no doubt. But the thing we're trying to take care of is win the game. Win what we can win. If it comes to a point where we have to worry about point spread, we'll worry about that then. But let's just worry about getting the 2 wins.
I like it. Well, I was looking at the tiebreaker scenarios, and it's one of those things where the interesting thing is going to come for a team like Morrilton, who, if Clarksville's ahead at the end of this game, 3 points up, do you foul to try to get the ball back and try to win this game? Or because if you lose the game, if you're going to lose the game anyway, you don't want to give them the more points so that they beat you in the point spread as well. So it's going to be a lot of stuff strategically going on Tuesday night, just off the court, not just including what's going on the court. And then that's going to be a great game.
It's funny you say that because that's what Coach Talley and I were talking about this morning. It could be a scenario where we are up 3 and they're trying to stall the basketball and we're trying to foul. So like I said, we're just going to try to take care of winning ball games. And if it comes down to a last possession to where we need another bucket, we'll approach it at that time. I'm mindful of all that stuff, but the main thing we're concerned of is getting 2 W's this week. Getting to 12 wins, and then let's just fall with it, man.
Yeah, as easy as it sounds, just go out there and win by 20, no big deal, right, Weldon?
Yeah, and make it no big deal. And I think, from my coaching standpoint, I think you look at it as, you're going to try to do your job and win the game. And then, as Coach Davis said, take care of from there. But, Coach, for those of us who haven't seen Morrilton play, just tell us about what things they do to make it difficult on you. I know you mentioned they're well coached, about their size, their guard play. What makes Morrilton a good basketball team?
Well, I mean, like I said, first one's just well coached. And Coach Tittum has them in the right places. Defensively, they're athletic, number one, and strong, and then they're good offensively. They've got. He can go 7 players that can all score the basketball. And with their athleticism and their strength, you got guys that can shoot it. People know that from playing against us. If you have those combinations, you're tough to defend. It's tough to do things to jam people up like that.
Well, Coach, before we get you out of here, I know we talk basketball with Coach at every level, every time we get him on the show. So anything in the world of basketball right now that's jumping out to you? I know you probably saw LeBron get his nose broken the other day, and he bled, so he's really human. I don't know if you saw that. And then maybe the Razorback basketball team, you got any hope that they're going to make the NCAA tournament?
I'd like to win the tournament, I think, to get in. LeBron, actually, I think him breaking nose could be the best thing, because I think right now he was so concerned about trying to show people that he's the MVP instead of Durant. It may save his legs for the tournament, for the playoffs, to be honest with you. And actually, the thing I'm most fired up about this week is the terrible calls against Syracuse at Cameron Indoor. I think if I coach Bayham, I might have strangled an official that night.
Well, I was thinking about that. Whenever he came running out there, I was like, man, I bet Coach Davis would have ripped that dude's head right off. Oh, Lord, that was rough.
About it.
That was rough, man. The way that game ended, and it was one of those things where, Coach Boeheim, well, we're going to talk about that here in a little bit. He just went a little nuts there for a minute. All right, Coach Davis, we appreciate your time. You guys get a big win tomorrow night there against Morrilton at Pantherland. You got a color you're calling for tomorrow night?
Hey, it's going to be a whiteout tomorrow night. We want this gym packed out with many Clarksville fans and basketball fans to come through and watch a good basketball game. There may not be a better game on the side of the state this year, I think.
No, you're right. It's going to be a good one. White out there at Pantherland. Coach Davis, we appreciate your time.
All right, man. Take care. Thank you, guys.
All right. Clarksville head basketball coach Tony Davis got a big game tomorrow night against Morrilton. It's going to, for all intents and purposes, decide the 5A West 1 and 2 seeds. And like we said, there's a point differential coming into play as Clarksville lost by 4 points at Morrilton. If they beat Morrilton by 5 points or more, they'll be the 1 seed. If they beat Morrilton by 4 points or less, Morrilton will still be the 1 seed. And that is just fascinating to me, the way that the game's going to have to go from there. Yeah, I know Weldon doesn't like the tiebreaker scenario there.
Well, I'm just, this is tennis. I see it, and I'm just not a big fan of it. I get why they do it. I think we both understand it. I just, it's point spread. Once you get to it, then it starts getting the goofy scenarios like, do we want to win the game or not? Or do we, if we're behind, do we try to foul to catch up? But, no, we don't want them to score too many points. I don't like quirky stuff interfering with the play of basketball. That's my only issue with it. But, it is what it is. And Coach Davis, he's accepting of the terms. And, he's talking, as a good coach, you talk with your staff. You go through the scenarios, the what-ifs. You do all that stuff. But more importantly, you worry about just beating the Morrilton Devil Dogs. I know that's his mindset. And the Panthers will be ready. Morrilton will be ready. Classic in the 5A West.
While we're talking about Clarksville, I need to give a huge shout-out right quickly to the swim team there at Clarksville. Coach Lance Fetters sent me a little information, and he said both the boys and girls Clarksville swim teams won the 5A and below North District Championship this weekend in Springdale. The 2013-14 swim team holds 18 of 22 school records, has broken 16 of those records again this year. Seniors on this year's team include Sailor Seifert and Jesus Arredondo. Team captains are Brandon Baker, who's a basketball player as well, and Aaron Rogers. He sent me a picture. I'm going to post this to rivervalleyleader.com here in a little bit. Huge congratulations to the swim team at Clarksville High School. Way to go get it there in your new facility there at Clarksville at the Marvin Vincent Center. Good Lord, me and speaking today don't get along. All right, and then also while I'm thinking about it, we haven't broken this news yet to you guys here on the Sports Blitz, but Clarksville's going to be looking for a new football coach. Coach Banning has accepted a job. Coach Michael Banning has accepted a job within the school in administration as activities director, sort of an athletic director, but more broad job there at Clarksville. So they're looking for a new high school head football coach. Coach Jake Hudson, the baseball coach, been there 20-plus years, been there for all 4 of his kids. One of them played softball. She was a girl, so she didn't play baseball, but been there for all of his kids. And now Jace Hudson, his son, senior baseball player, going to pitch for SAU starting next year. He's going to step down and resign, I don't know how you want to say it, from baseball. He's going to continue to teach science there at the high school, but he's seen his kids through, and now it's time for him to enjoy the rest of his career as a teacher and not coaching anymore. So hats off to Coach Hudson, one of the nicest people I know there at Clarksville High School, and there are going to be some more coaching news updates here in the next couple weeks. I know Clarksville has interviewed 14 or 15 different guys for this head football coaching job. And, Weldon, we've talked about this for years. I think that what Clarksville needs to do is they need to get somebody who's going to run the same system all the way down, even to Pee Wee. You guys, right. you are going to run this system. I don't care if it's the I formation, if it's the air raid, somewhere in between. It doesn't matter to me. Run the same thing and get going from down here all the way up through high school. I think that's what you'll do to improve football at Clarksville High School.
Oh, absolutely. I think that's something that, as a high school head coach, that's the first thing you do, because you don't win championships with 9th through 12th graders. If you get a new job and you inherit a good group of 9th through 12th graders, that's great. But if you want to be a consistent power, you got to get those peewees. That's how you're winning championships. The 5th, the 6th graders, all the way up. The ability to run the same system, as you said, is important. It's funny you brought that up. I was talking to a high school offensive coordinator this weekend, and we were exchanging ideas, doing what you do when you're in a clinic. And I told him that's one of the first things you want to do is get things in place, with the coaches below you. Because if you're a head coach or a coordinator at the high school level, essentially you're the head coach for everybody in the program from the junior high on down. They should be following your lead. If you don't have cohesion at your junior high or middle school levels, it's really tough to have a consistent high school program. So I told them, I said, whatever you're going to run, and we talked, some football, I said, make sure the younger guys are running some variation of that. It doesn't have to be the whole shebang. We know high school, you're going to put in more concepts. It's going to be more complex. But get them used to your terminology, get it used to the same thing. And for Clarksville, Mark, Clarksville's, it's been years, but they've had some good football here and there at times. They've had good football. Kind of have to go way back. But the capability is there. I think what Coach Davis and company have done in basketball recently, I think that helps. The fact that you can win at Clarksville. So I think they'll make a good hire, and I think the program will be where it needs to be.
Yeah, you've got some athletes that if you could get some of these kids who are playing basketball in 7th grade to start playing football and keep them.
Yeah.
And I think success would have some bearing on it, because if they thought they were going to be really good, people go watch North Little Rock and all these kids that are getting scholarships to go play, or Greenwood, or wherever players are coming up, and going on to bigger and better things. It's not just basketball now. There's several guys from Clarksville who are getting basketball scholarships. That's great. I'd love to see Clarksville getting some football scholarships in the next few years. While we're talking about football, need to point out something. Also, we're moving on to Russellville real quickly. My friend Blake Young, who's an assistant football and basketball coach there at the Russellville Junior High, the middle school. He's the 7th grade boys basketball coach and also an assistant with the football team. They didn't lose a game this entire year, the East Side, in football or basketball. So in 7th grade, so that's a big deal for those guys to have completed a season like that. And like you said, they're getting started off on the right foot. And speaking of on the right foot, right now the Russellville High School Cyclones a little excited after a big win over a top 10 team in the state in Little Rock Hall on Friday night.
Yeah, our Russellville, they got it done. They played well throughout the game, from what I was told. It got a little bit tight. Then they were able to hit a 3 to win the game. But, this is big for Russellville from this standpoint. It kind of got to a point to where you just were frustrated that they would beat down on the teams that weren't very good, and then they would kind of play even with the teams in the middle, and then they just couldn't even compete with the teams on top. So now they finally are able to go up there and beat a team who was at the top of the conference. I think this is a huge breakthrough for them because, again, you're going to play the Greenwoods and the Catholics and the South Sides of the world. You're going to be able to beat them with pretty good consistency. You're going to play the Conways of the world and teams like that. And you're going to split with them. You're going to beat them some. They're going to beat you. But then we know when the Little Rock team's on the schedule, we're just like, try to keep it within 10. I mean, that's the way it's been the last couple of years. But now to see them break through and beat one of these teams, Little Rock Hall can still play. No Bobby Portis, no problem. I mean, obviously they'd like to have him, but I mean, they're still one of the top teams in the class. It was still a huge win for the Russellville Cyclones.
Definitely. And speaking of big wins, the Pottsville Apaches couldn't get one. They wanted one big time, man, against Subiaco there in the quarterfinals, or I guess, no, it was the semifinals of the district tournament there at Pottsville. First loss they've had all year at Pottsville High School in basketball and boys basketball. Before I forget, we need to give a shout out to the Pottsville girls. Won the district tournament over Mena. A big, big thing for them because the 4A1 that they'll face in the regional is tough, and they need to get the lower seeded team so that they can win a game, hopefully, and make it to the state tournament. But while we're thinking about the boys' side, Pottsville gets the 3 seed, and they'll face the number 2 seed out of the 4A1. That's Farmington, who was a favorite to win the tournament. They weren't the favorite. I think they were the 2 seed going in, and Lincoln got upset. Farmington got to the finals and lost to a very hot Prairie Grove team. So Pottsville gets the 3 seed. They take on Farmington in the first round of the 4A North Regional. It was at Farmington is where this tournament was, and they're going to be playing at Lincoln this week. Dardanelle gets the 4 seed at regional. They won their way to the semifinals, and then in the district tournament. And then they go to the regional tournament. They get the 1 seed, Prairie Grove, who is hot right now.
Yeah, tough one for Dardanelle, right? In Prairie Grove.
Yes,
yeah, tough one,
first round.
But good they made it in. We knew Pottsville would be there. I hope to get another River Valley team in. Dardanelle was able to do it, but they do have a tough draw, but at least they're in the game. They have a chance to win, and so we'll certainly be supporting them. Pottsville, they weren't unable to get the victory, but they're still in position to play for an opportunity to go and win a state championship. It's going to be a tougher road now with their regional draw, but at the same time, they're in the mix. And that's really all you can ask for this time of year.
Definitely. And while we're thinking about it, Arkansas Tech basketball and baseball going on right now, softball and tennis as well. Arkansas Tech dominates spring sports in the GAC as far as making up points for that all-sports trophy that Arkansas Tech is on, the Arkansas Tech Trophy, as we called it.
That's right.
They've won it 2 years in a row, looking to go 3 for 3 in the GAC. Arkansas Tech men's baseball team, number 20 in the country in the first poll out there in Division II baseball, so we need to give a hats off to them. Also, the Wonder Boys basketball team and Golden Suns taking on, I just lost who it was that they're playing tonight, but it's senior night for the Golden Suns and Wonder Boys there at Tucker Coliseum. The boys, Wonder Boys, held off Southern Arkansas 74-70 this weekend, and the Golden Suns got another big win as well to move to 11-6 in the GAC. They beat Southern Arkansas 73-63. When we come back, we're going to look at the wire. We're going to talk about Jason Collins, some combine freaks, the N-word in the NFL. LeBron and his broken nose, and then, like Coach Davis mentioned, Jim Boeheim and that Duke-Syracuse crazy basketball game from the week.
Hi folks, Richard Roberts with Cogswell Motors in Russellville. We've been in business since 1949. A dealership doesn't stay in business that long under the same ownership unless you're doing something right, and that's taking care of customers. We have the largest selection of new Ford, Lincoln, Mazda, and pre-owned vehicles in the River Valley. So if you want the most for your trade, the best interest rate on financing, and the best price on a new or pre-owned automobile, come to Russellville and see us. We're at 1900 East Main, or visit us on the web at cogswellmotors.com.
If you didn't count on KARK4 today this morning,
here's what you missed.
Updated news.
Police continue searching for suspects after a home intrusion overnight.
Developing stories.
There's another piece of presidential history turning up here in Arkansas.
And weather and traffic on the force.
Friday night, Saturday morning will bring us our next chance rain.
Every 10 minutes.
Around the clock.
Making your day easier.
So rise and shine and count on.
Count on.
Count on. KARK4 today.
RiverValleyLeader.com is the #1 local source for instant news in the River Valley, offering HD video and live streaming along with top-notch coverage of all the news and events around the area. The River Valley Leader is the only place to go for all the information you need. Check out the newest local business featured on the site, as well as police news and coverage from important meetings, along with the personal stories, all at one convenient click. Check out rivervalleyleader.com.
Today, there are more than 20 brands of cars being sold in America. So to be noticed, Ford and Cogswell Motors have to go further than anyone thought we could. How does Ford stand out above the crowd? Not just with plug-in vehicles like the new 2013 Ford Fusion Energy that gets a projected 100 miles per gallon equivalent, but also with a line of gas vehicles equipped with the innovative EcoBoost engines combining power and efficiency, plus a full measure of technologically advanced features. We invite you to stop into Cogswell Motors today. We go further than anyone thought we could, so that you can go further too.
If you didn't count on KARK4 today this morning,
Here's what you missed.
updated news,
Police continue searching for suspects after a home intrusion overnight.
developing stories,
There's another piece of presidential history turning up here in Arkansas.
and weather and traffic on the force.
Friday night, Saturday morning will bring us our next chance rain.
Every 10 minutes.
Around the clock.
Making your day easier.
So rise and shine and count on.
Count on.
Count on KRK4 today.
rivervalleyleader.com is the #1 local source for instant news in the River Valley, offering HD video and live streaming along with top-notch coverage of all the news and events around the area. The River Valley Leader is the only place to go for all the information you need. Check out the newest local business featured on the site, as well as police news and coverage from important meetings, along with the personal stories, all at one convenient click. Check out rivervalleyleader.com.
Today, there are more than 20 brands of cars being sold in America. So to be noticed, Ford and Cogswell Motors have to go further than anyone thought we could. How does Ford stand out above the crowd? Not just with plug-in vehicles like the new 2013 Ford Fusion Energy that gets a projected 100 miles per gallon equivalent, but also with a line of gas vehicles equipped with the innovative EcoBoost engines combining power and efficiency, plus a full measure of technologically advanced features. We invite you to stop into Cogswell Motors today. We go further than anyone thought we could, so that you can go further too.
Welcome back into this Sports Blitz on a Monday. Thank you to Coach Tony Davis calling in, talking about his Clarksville Panthers. It's a good opening segment there for local sports, but we're going to hit the wire real quickly before we get to Arkansas Razorback sports here in a little bit. Today's CrossFit Russellville poll question does deal with Arkansas Razorbacks, though. It's basically, and it's obviously open-ended. I hate yes or no questions because that's what you'll answer with, yes or no, and we won't be able to debate and talk about that much.
Right.
But today's CrossFit Russellville poll question, we asked, what are your thoughts on the prospects for the rest of the Arkansas basketball season? I don't want to ask if you think they're going to make the tournament. I don't want to ask if you think that they're going to beat Kentucky or whatever it is. I just want to know what you think about the rest of the season. We were talking about it before the show, and things, Arkansas basketball has been like this all year, just up and down, but things are looking pretty good right now.
They are looking good right now, Mark. I'm looking at it. You've beaten LSU, you've beaten South Carolina, you've beaten, I forgot who they even played, Mississippi State on the road. The thing about Arkansas on the road, I think the game against Mississippi State was big simply because I think if you're looking at their resume, you no longer hold their road status against them. What I mean by that is, okay, they're not going to be over 500 on the road, but a bunch of teams in the tournament will be below 500 on the road. It's not a hanging cloud over those other teams. They win 2 or 3 road games, and nobody talks about it, versus Arkansas with no wins or even just one win and the huge reputation of that team can't win on the road for some reason. I think that's now dissipated. They're still going to have a terrible road record when the season's over, but that's not something you now hold against them if you're the committee. But expectations, that's something that from a fan standpoint, I know we really want to be careful with, because there's that tendency to just jump on the bandwagon if you don't know any better and just say, oh, they've arrived, Final Four. What seed are we going to be, a 3, 5 seed at the worst? But we understand that everything has to be put into its proper perspective. The Kentucky game on Thursday, I'm glad it is where it is in terms of the place Arkansas is mentally. You don't want to be on a 2-game losing streak trying to get right at Kentucky.
Yeah.
You want to go.
You'll have a 3-game losing streak.
You certainly will, and it'll be an ugly 3rd straight loss. At the same time, you're an underdog still, but at least you're going in playing with confidence. And a confident Arkansas team still struggles in a lot of areas, don't get me wrong, but they are a team that can be problematic in different ways. I'm not picking them to beat Kentucky, but what I am saying is I like the place they are going into that game.
We'll talk a little bit more about the Hogs basketball team here in just a little bit, but let's run through the wire real quickly. Jason Collins signs a 10-day contract with the Brooklyn Nets. I almost called them the New Jersey Nets. And you know, there's a lot of talk yesterday about whether or not it was a political move, whether it was a basketball move, or whatever it was. Played, I think it was just around 10 minutes last night. Didn't do a whole lot, but he was out there on a 10-day contract. You got any thoughts on this? I know we don't like to talk a lot about these political things.
Yeah.
There's another one coming here in a minute that is just we're probably not going to have too much of an opinion, but it's a news story.
It is a news story, and the reason why, and look, if we're on a political forum or whatnot, or we're just talking, it's one thing, but the difficult part about it is you try not to interject your personal beliefs into being an analyst here on the show. But I will say this for the move. I question it from some standpoint. It's just strange with the combine and Michael Sam being on the spotlight and all of that. And then this comes down, and you know, all these leagues, and I've said this before, you don't want to be polarizing if you're running a league. You want to be all things to all people. And now you see, the NFL, they're bringing in a high-profile, openly gay player. They're scoring points publicly. Come on, somebody sign Collins so we can catch up in the PR battle. I'm not saying that's what happened. That's just something that crossed my mind. Collins is a guy who, whether he's gay or not, he had been a great player. I mean, that's something we have to keep in mind. He's been a banger. He's been somebody who just, forearms people, uses his fouls, and there's value in that.
He got 5 of them last night.
Yeah, that's what he does. I heard somebody try to say, well, his plus minus is among the best centers in the league. I said we should bar this plus minus. I used to respect plus minus a little bit.
So you heard that?
Yeah, I mean, look, Jason Collins is not a great. Jason Collins will tell you he's not a great player. So don't even make that case.
Yeah.
You want to say he's a big body fouler, fine. It's one of those things. A 10-day contract. He'll probably get another one. He may stay the rest of the season. It came across PR-ish to me, but who knows?
It definitely did to me too. As far as they're doing this. I don't want to say they were pressured, but it may have been one of those things where they needed somebody, and the league is kind of like, hey, look, you're the only person, the only team that this really makes sense for, because he's been there, he knows the terminology, he knows the system, so to speak. I know he hadn't played for Jason Kidd, but it's sort of the same thing. So I can see how, the NBA may have had their finger in that a little bit, just saying, hey, you're just going to sign him to a 10-day. He's going to take up a couple minutes, get a couple fouls, get a couple rebounds. It's not going to hurt you at all. So go ahead and sign him. Yeah. So I can see how it would be that way. I'm not saying that's how it was, but I can see that being the case. Either way, at the end of the day, he's kind of a end-of-the-bench type of player right now anyway at this point in his career. So I just think it's something like you said. There's maybe some layers to it.
Yeah.
And while we're talking about layers to a political story, saw this morning that I guess it was Ryan Clark was being representative of the NFL players on ESPN, and he was talking about the NFL's plan to try to police the use of the N-word on the field. I want to talk about that for just a second, because I think that's going to be really tough, but at the same time, I also think it'd be really, I don't want to say funny, but it'd be interesting to see what happens the first time a ref throws a flag for somebody saying, here's a 15-yard unsportsmanlike for you using the N-word on the field.
Yeah. Look, these players, they don't just start saying the word when they're on the field. I mean, this is just something that the people who use the term, that's what they do. They do it in the locker room. They do it at home. They just say it everywhere like it's nothing. I mean, it's one of those things where, okay, they get on the field, they can't use it. I don't think this is going to go over well. I don't think it's going to work. I don't think it's going to be effective. I don't even know what you're accomplishing. I mean, it's not like basketball, and even basketball wouldn't make sense, but it's just like you got the crowd. You're not close to the field. If you're going to say, I don't want kids in the crowd to hear, or fans on TV, we don't hear what they say anyway. They're just strictly a player, official type, coach, on field type thing. It's not going to affect the fans or anybody at home anyway. These players say it. They're not going to stop saying it. It's going to be subjective. Somebody's going to deny that they said it. And, it sounded like I said this or that. Unless you're in the official space.
I really said ninja.
Yeah, I mean, unless you're in the ref's face or you're right next to a ref talking to another player, you blatantly just point. You say it. Other than that, And I don't even see that I haven't seen that as a problem already, an existing problem in a huge scale. So it's really not a big deal to me.
I hadn't thought of it in that way, that the people in the stands watching the game, they're not going to know or care, but they see that 15-yard penalty marked off, and they're going to think, you gave him that for a word?
Yeah.
When somebody just laid somebody out over here on the sideline out of bounds, and you didn't, it's the same thing. That's going to be, it's going to be impossible. Now that we're thinking about it a little bit, talking it out loud, it's going to be impossible for them to legislate that. So while we're talking about the NFL, we need to look at some combine freaks, some folks who just did crazy stuff at the NFL Combine. Dree Archer runs a 4.26 40-yard dash, falling just short of Chris Johnson's combine record. He's 5'8", ran the 4.26, but I think that pales in comparison to Jadeveon Clowney, who is a beast, is a freak, is every positive word you could call some workout warrior. Ran a 4.40 in the 40-yard dash there at the NFL Combine. Not something that's all that surprising because we knew he was fast, we knew he was big, but it was one of those things that Maddie showed me some video that was layered with Johnny Manziel running his 40 and Jadeveon Clowney. They start at the same time, and then like Clowney just moves out on and leaves him, and that's fascinating because Johnny Manziel ran a 4.5 some 40, and it was just interesting because they also layered another one with Clowney, Cam Newton, and Colin Kaepernick, and he ran away from those two as well. And, talking about him chasing down quarterbacks, it's going to be something to see this next year.
Yeah, I mean, Jadeveon Clowney is a freak of nature. And then you look at that 40 time at the Combine, he might have been disappointed about it. Because we remember last summer, I think we heard in the 4.3 neighborhood. He ran during summer workouts.
Doesn't everybody, though? Arkansas had a bunch of guys running 4.2s a couple years ago. You remember that?
Yeah, so if it came out, they ran like 4.6s.
Yeah.
But the thing with Clowney, and we heard the Spurrier quote, he was asked about Clowney's work ethic, and he gave a ho-hum answer that wasn't a ringing endorsement. I just think that's what you're dealing with when you're taking Clowney. You're not getting the first guy in the weight room. You're not getting the last guy to leave, but you are getting essentially a LeBron James of football in terms of physical talent. So it just depends on, do you want to take the chance? Do you have strong leadership in your locker room? He can be an all-time great player. He can be a statistic of highly graded players who never reach their potential. There's cases on each side of it. His physical attributes, they don't surprise me. They are impressive, don't get me wrong. But, Mark, I just think it's going to come down to, if you're a GM, do I have the leaders? Do I have a strong backbone in my locker room? Can I make sure this kid gets the most out of his body? Or do we have a weak locker room and maybe he's going to kind of veer off and be lazy and not reach his potential and be almost a bust in our locker room? I think those are the debates going on now.
And while we're talking about freaks, R.C. Fisher just tweeted, and Jason Kilburn just sent me a text to reiterate, Chris Smith, Arkansas defensive end, ran an unofficial 4.54 40-yard dash, basically in the same neighborhood as Jadeveon Clowney. And nobody's really talking about it, but Chris Smith looking really good, and it looks like he's going to have obviously this weekend helped his draft stock.
There's no question about it. Chris Smith, another tweener type guy. We've seen him before. Are they an end? Are they a linebacker? That 40 time does help. His arms are, I think, a half inch or less than a half inch shorter than Clowney's, which is a difference, but not as much as people thought. The hand size, he was near some of the top players physically more than what people thought. Now, obviously, his height, he's only 6'1", but in a league where there's a lot of passing, a lot of spreading it out, there's value in getting after the quarterback. Seattle is now drafting people, starting with Bruce Irvin. They're now drafting people who they know full well they don't play the run well. Used to be you wouldn't touch a defensive end if he couldn't play the run well, even if he was a great pass rush. You look at the Robert Mathises of the world who are third and fourth, whatever round picks. Nowadays, those guys are put at a premium. Okay, you can't play the run, but you can get after quarterbacks. You can be a first or second round pick now. I really think Chris Smith helped. And I guess while we're in the Razorback family, Travis Swanson also at the Combine. Swanson, he's a guy who just depends on who you ask. I will say this: I think the Combine confirmed the fact that he's going to go to a zone team. I can't see a power team going with Swanson, which is okay. I think he's got his lateral movement is good. I think he's a tough, smart kid. I don't see a power team going with him. I think he'll go to a zone team, and I think he'll be a starter down the road.
He's going to be a center. It's not one of those things where not many teams, and your point about the zone teams is probably right. You know a whole lot more about that than I would, but I don't see a whole lot of teams expecting their center to just be a road grader. Some of them do, but
like if you talk about having to face those 340-pound noses, like if you look on, I think Mayock, who I love, Mike Mayock, huge fan. I like the point he made. With Swanson, a lot of his blocks were stalemate blocks, and if you're a power team, you gotta get those noses out. You can't afford stalemates, but a power team is going to be blocking more downhill, almost like ISO, like right at you. Swanson, you can't have stalemates. So, I look at DJ Fluker. Here's a good example: DJ Fluker or Lane Johnson. Now, Lane Johnson last year went ahead of DJ Fluker. Fluker went to the Chargers. If the San Diego were in that spot Philadelphia were, and they could have chosen between Fluker and Johnson, they still would have taken Fluker. Why? Because San Diego's a power ISO team. Lane Johnson's a former tight end, lateral type guy. So I just think it's more about your fit, and I think Swanson's going to fit in good with a zone type team.
Couple other things along the wire. Dale Jr. wins the Daytona 500. Lots of wrecks. Maddie mentioned. Obviously, I didn't want. I didn't watch a second of that race because the cars were just driving around in circles, making left-hand turns, and they did 500 of those apparently. So also,
actually they didn't, but okay.
How many they do?
It's 2-something because it's 500 miles and the
500 miles.
And the track's 2-something.
I know everything about NASCAR racing, so I should make jokes about it. What an idiot! If I can't even tell you how many laps are in it, I shouldn't be able to make that joke.
It was funny, though. The joke was good, though. It was a good joke.
Appreciate you laughing at my stupid jokes. All right, speaking of, this is not a joke. LeBron James broke his nose the other night, and he bled all over the Oklahoma City floor. Miami still won by a big, nice margin, and we didn't get to talk a little bit about it, so I'm just going to talk about it now.
Ahead.
But LeBron looks like he's going to be putting that mask back on from when he was 19, and one of the best dunks he ever had in his career. Remember when he dunked on Damon Jones?
Yeah.
Just all over him. Of course, if I saw Damon Jones under the basket and I'm LeBron James, I'm probably not going to be scared either, but he went up and just hammered on him, came with that mask on. I don't think it's going to impact his play much. I would like Coach Davis said, to see him take a few games off, just in little maintenance right now, to keep his legs a little more fresh. You can tell right now that it's working for Dwayne Wade. All those nights off that he's taking, second half of back-to-backs, or just random times where he's like, "Oh, my back's a little stiff. I'm just going to sit tonight." Because the last 2 games, it's been 20-plus points, 10-plus rebounds, 7 assists. It's been a nice little run there for Dwayne Wade. But talking about LeBron, do you think this is going to affect him at all?
Yeah, Coach Davis made the point. I don't want to see LeBron overdo it, and the race against Kevin Durant can subconsciously cause you to, take it up a few extra notches. In a regular season, it doesn't mean anything. You're locked into the number 2 seed at worst case scenario. You're not afraid of Game 7 at Indiana in terms of having to be at home. So ultimately, you don't want to overdo it. Remember last year, sort of felt like the winning streak caused guys to exert themselves a little bit more. So I think LeBron will chill out. You look at the Oklahoma City Thunder; they're still trying to work out some kinks. Westbrook, he's getting a little bit better as he gets more comfortable. He lost a wild one to the Clippers, but it's gonna be a good MVP race. I think LeBron James and company will be fine. Dwayne Wade will be rested. So I think it'll be a good finish.
See, I'm kind of wanting to go the other way from those experts who are talking about the playoff race, because right now Miami is 2 games in the win column behind Indiana in the East. They're the number 2 seed, a game and a half back overall, and they're 3 games out behind Oklahoma City for the best record in the league overall. And I'm not saying that they're going to have to exert, that they want to exert a whole lot of effort, but when they're only that far behind, if they see some of these teams continue to lose and they can put themselves in position to get that overall number 1 seed and have Game 7 at their place, I don't think there's anybody arguing last year that Miami won the NBA Finals because they had Game 7 at home, and because they had the series go the way it did. Now they're going back to 2-2, 1-1-1.
Yeah.
But I think Game 7 could have a big impact at home for Miami. So I want it to be a balance. If I'm Miami, I don't want them to overexert themselves because they know they can win anywhere. But at the end of the day, it'd be nice to have Game 7 at home.
I agree with that. I think you do want balance. I just think if it comes to a push or shove thing, like if you can't do both, you got to pick. you got to pick either you want to win games do you want to chase Indiana and try to catch them, or do you want to rest Dwayne Wade? If it's let's say, what if you've got back-to-back and the second game of the back-to-back is like I don't know. It could be anybody. Do you play, Dwayne Wade that back-to-back night? Say it's towards the end of the year, the race is close. What do? You play D. Wade that second night. Do you rest him? LeBron, do you play him 40-plus minutes or whatever, or do you scale back on him? I just think if it comes down to one of those decisions, I think ultimately rest and deal with the 2 seed. But I'm with you. They do want it, and if they can get it, go ahead and grab it.
Yeah, that's kind of where I am. If it comes down to something like that,
yeah.
And at the end, then you do what you got to do to get it. But if you're going to have to overexert yourself over a long period of time, I wouldn't do it. So, yeah, I'm with you. All right, let's hit our final break. We come back. We got to look a little bit. I want to just look for a minute at this Duke-Syracuse game because I wasn't really all that stoked about the way it ended. Coach Davis didn't like it, but he hates Duke.
Jim Boeheim
I dislike Duke. Coach Davis hates Duke. So we got to talk a little bit about Jim Boeheim's reaction and a question I heard asked last night by a radio guy who he said he wished he'd heard a reporter ask. I'll ask it here in just a minute.
Hi folks, Richard Roberts with Cogswell Motors in Russellville. We've been in business since 1949. A dealership doesn't stay in business that long under the same ownership unless you're doing something right, and that's taking care of customers. We have the largest selection of new Ford, Lincoln, Mazda, and pre-owned vehicles in the River Valley. So if you want the most for your trade, the best interest rate on financing, and the best price on a new or pre-owned automobile, come to Russellville and see us. We're at 1900 East Main, or visit us on the web at cogswellmotors.com.
If you didn't count on KARK4 today this morning,
Here's what you missed.
updated news,
Police continue searching for suspects after a home intrusion overnight.
developing stories,
There's another piece of presidential history turning up here in Arkansas.
and weather and traffic on the force.
Friday night, Saturday morning will bring us our next chance of rain.
Every 10 minutes.
Around the clock.
Making your day easier.
So rise and shine and count on.
Count on.
KRK4 today.
RiverValleyLeader.com is the #1 local source for instant news in the River Valley, offering HD video and live streaming along with top-notch coverage of all the news and events around the area. The River Valley Leader is the only place to go for all the information you need. Check out the newest local business featured on the site, as well as police news and coverage from important meetings, along with the personal stories, all at one convenient click. Check out RiverValleyLeader.com.
Today, there are more than 20 brands of cars being sold in America. So to be noticed, Ford and Cogswell Motors have to go further than anyone thought we could. How does Ford stand out above the crowd? Not just with plug-in vehicles like the new 2013 Ford Fusion Energy that gets a projected 100 miles per gallon equivalent, but also with a line of gas vehicles equipped with the innovative EcoBoost engines combining power and efficiency, plus a full measure of technologically advanced features. We invite you to stop into Cogswell Motors today. We go further than anyone thought we could, so that you can go further too.
Final segment of the Sports Blitz, and we're joined on the phone right now by Old School Baller. Got a couple questions he wanted to address. I know he mentioned the Duke-Syracuse game. You mentioned how Jim Boeheim reacted at the end of that game when C.J. Ferris called for the charge on what he believed to be, he very vehemently disagreed. He believed it to be a block, and he felt like that C.J. Ferris should have been shooting a free throw to take the lead rather than the game being basically over. Old School Baller, how you doing, man?
I'm doing good. How you guys doing today?
Doing good. Well, I guess we can address that first question real quickly. I didn't love the call. I felt like it was one of those calls that Duke always gets at home. It seems, though, like Duke gets them more often than anybody else. I don't want to say that as a fact, but it seems like that they get those calls pretty much every time.
Especially at Cameron. But, Boeheim, he's smart. I'm not really a Boeheim fan, but he wins. He comes and plays you a game at every opportunity. And I just thought, I can't fault the team. I think he gave that game away. I'm not saying he gave it away, but he gave the opportunity to win that game away. They still had a chance until, man, I don't know. I'm not saying the call was good or bad. It could have gone either way. But anyway, and also two other issues I wish you'd kind of discuss. And one of them, I haven't heard. Went messed around this gun show all weekend and didn't read the paper, see any news or anything. How did Swanson do in the combine or tryouts or whatever you call it? And also, I heard someone mention that the Patriots may be interested in drafting a quarterback. And if so, have you heard anything about that? And what is Mallett's contractual status?
All right, we can deal with those. You want to stay on the line or you want to take them off the air?
I'll just stay on here. It doesn't matter. I'll just stay on here a minute.
Okay. All right. Well, first off, I agree with you on the Jim Boeheim thing. I don't often switch my opinion, after a little bit. I can kind of come to something real quickly. And I thought initially, I can't blame Jim Boeheim for getting mad. I would have been mad too. But the more I think about it, they just hit a 40-footer to win a game a couple days ago, or a couple weeks ago now. Anything can happen at the end of that game if you're still in the game. But when you get a double technical, they shoot, make 3 out of 4 free throws and get the ball, game's over right then. And that was a 2-point game that if he just gets a technical, it's different. Or if he just gives the ref the what for and doesn't react the way he did, the game's not quite over. I understand him being upset. I understand, in the moment I understood him doing it. But when I listened to his post-game press conference, it's kind of like he did it on purpose, and he was kind of making light of it and jokes about it and like, I still have my moves. And I thought, and then I heard a radio guy last night asked the question. He said, I wish there was a journalist in there, a reporter who would have asked Jim Boeheim what he would have done, how he would have reacted in this post-game press conference if it had been a player who had the same reaction he had. And that's a question, Weldon, that I think would have been a completely different situation. Granted, Jim Boeheim has been there 40 years, and he has earned the right to blow up if he needs to, but he himself ended the game.
Yeah. I think it's one of those things. It's a good question. I think Boeheim every coach would be frustrated if a player were to do that. But I think he would have still handled it better than most, and here's why. Jim Boeheim the reason I like him is he's a fully understanding kind of guy. Some coaches like, we don't play this in my program, blah, blah. Jim Boeheim, because he's been there 40 years, he's like, the kid got upset and he can't do that. We move on. Jim Boeheim's the first guy to say his teams get lucky. He's the first guy that says his teams deserve to lose. He's just like a cool, honest dude that doesn't try to put on I'm a tough coach. This is my program. Now, I do think he would have reacted differently. He wouldn't have been just joking, ha ha. But I think he would have been kind of cool with it just because he's like, we'll handle him and we'll discipline him. We'll move on to the next game. Boeheim's kind of like whatever. He's a whatever kind of dude. He's a heck of a basketball coach, but he's not one of these young guys that has to put on a front like, we don't accept that. We're a tough, disciplined program. He's over all that. He's old. He's Boeheim. He's cool.
Well,
that's what I see.
A couple other questions. You mentioned Travis Swanson and how he performed in the combine, but just to reiterate for Old School Baller. Yeah,
Old School Baller. Travis Swanson went to the combine, 40 times not important, but for the record, he did run a 5.28, did 20 reps at the combine. I know strength isn't I know strength on the bench doesn't necessarily mean how strong or weak he is on the field. The problem for Swanson is his game tape had scouts and coaches questioning his strength, and only doing 20 reps kind of confirmed it. So I think that'll be a challenge for him. 26-inch vertical, not really important. So to answer your question, Old School Baller, Travis Swanson's a guy who his strength is a question. I said it earlier. I think he'll go to a zone team where he can be, a little more of a lateral guy. He's not going to drive guys off the ball, like some ISO or some power teams will do. But he'll still be a starter in the league. I think you had a question about Mallett.
Ryan Mallett.
Yeah, Ryan Mallett's going into the last year of his contract. Haven't heard any serious trade talks on him, but he is going into the last year of his deal.
I did see some rumor that he was rumored to Minnesota, which, Lord, if they can get anybody besides Christian Ponder, that'd be a good thing for them. But I haven't seen anything move on that front. I would be interested to see if he doesn't get moved before the draft and the New England Patriots did draft a quarterback like Old School Baller had heard, that would writing on the wall for Ryan Mallett.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that he wouldn't make the team because they carried 3 with Hoyer and Mallett for a couple years there, or for at least a year. So he may still make the team, and they may just be given a little security knowing that he is going into the final year of his contract. So I don't know that I would read too much into that, but I would like to see Ryan Mallett get a chance someplace else. I've mentioned before, I'd like to see Ryan Mallett go to Houston, and then the Texans draft Jadeveon Clowney. You got the best of both worlds, as far as I'm concerned. But Johnny Manziel could turn into, or Teddy Bridgewater, one of these guys could turn into a franchise quarterback, and we're not real sure about Ryan Mallett yet at this point. So we'll see how the New England Patriots treat that situation, and we'll see if Ryan Mallett is with the team next year. Old School Baller, you got anything else before we let you go? All right.
I guess he let us go. So, and I think, look, if Mallett went to Minnesota, I think it'd be great. Look, I give North Turner a lot of junk about as a head coach. As an offensive coordinator, he's been successful. He was in Dallas. I know they had an amazing offensive line. Look what he did with Alex Smith. Harbaugh turned Smith around consistently, but of all those mediocre seasons he had, one of the good ones was under North Turner when he was OC at San Francisco. North now with the Minnesota Vikings as an offensive coordinator. It could be an opportunity with Mallett. Obviously, Jay Wright's there, so you got all that going on. So, we'll see how it goes.
I want to talk this week at some point about the Brett Bielema suspension system. It's one of those things where he's using time away from it's classic. Somebody does something you don't like, you take away something that they like. And he's doing it to his kids there at the University of Arkansas. Alex Collins got one. A couple other guys got one. A week suspension away from the team, all activities. So I want to talk about that sometime this week. But the Hogs basketball team gets a 73-69 win over Mississippi State on the road.
Where was it?
It was on the road.
That's right.
Where they'll be again Thursday against Kentucky, where, we've talked about this for weeks. We thought they were going to be, slaughtered. They were going to be sacrificial lambs to this Kentucky team who was coming around. Kentucky nearly lost to LSU over the weekend.
At home.
And Arkansas gets a 73-69 win on the road over Mississippi State. I like the way things are trending right now for the Hogs.
I do. And I by the way, I have some thoughts on that suspension system, too. We can get to that, sometime this week or whenever. But for basketball, look, Arkansas is playing better. We've said that. Things are trending upward. They are, NCAA discussion worthy, or at least they're trending that way. I mean, the Kentucky game is going to be interesting. I think Kentucky will show up and play. I think ultimately that'll be what allows them to win the game. I'll just go ahead and say it now. I'm picking Kentucky to win. But it's important how Arkansas comes out of that. To get beat 25-30 points would be a huge disappointment.
Yeah.
It would feel like you lost the game twice if that happened. But Arkansas is a team that's going to have to play Kentucky. They're going to get after them with their defense. They're going to try to make things happen for them. And, who knows? I think the size of Kentucky will ultimately be the difference. But you got to move past this game. I'm telling you this right now. Arkansas, move past the Kentucky game
before it even happens.
Before you even play it. Just get past it. Get ready for the last 3 games like Georgia, Ole Miss, and Alabama. Just focus on those games because it's important who you not lose to right now for me more so than who you beat. Beating Kentucky would be great. Don't lose to Georgia at home, please. Alabama's a tough, dead, drab place to play, but win there anyway. So is the dump. So is Ole Miss. Tough places.
Playing at home, though.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so, that is at home.
If you lose to Marshall Henderson and that guy, something bad's going to happen. I don't like that guy at all. Nothing about him makes me happy at all. Arkansas 7-7 among just a huge number of teams in the SEC right now at 7-7 in the conference. Now 18-9 overall. But looking back at this Mississippi State game, the players of the game, Antoine Bell. 19.
Yeah.
Where has that guy been? 19 points, hit 3 threes. He was as Nick Mason pointed out, he's a 15 1-1 kind of guy. 1 assist, 1 rebound, did nothing much but shoot. But he had 19 points to go along with his rebound. And then Michael Qualls, 15 points. He's come on of late. Since that suspension, Michael Qualls has played very well. It got the message across, got the word into his brain that he needed to be a better team player. Bobby Portis, 13 points, 7 rebounds. Cody Clark got 9 rebounds and 7 assists for the Hogs basketball team, who got a big win on the road, held on to defeat Mississippi State. We can't overstate the value of road wins for the Arkansas basketball team. It's been one of those things that has just been almost like a curse. People have put it on the Razorback basketball team that they can't win on the road. Well, here they are. They've won a couple games on the road.
Doesn't matter who it is either. Doesn't matter who they beat or who it is. And Antoine Belt, really happy for him because, here's a guy, and I've said it before, not a great dribbler, not a great passer, not a great defender. He's the designated shooter. And the designated shooter, Mark, last time I checked, needed to be able to shoot. And he wasn't able to do that. But he was against Mississippi State. He got hot. Let's hope that continues.
Definitely. All right, we got to get out of here. Hogs baseball, we mentioned 6-0 right now, swept Eastern Illinois. They got another series coming up this week. And the Hog basketball team Thursday against Kentucky, 6 o'clock tip in Rupp Arena. Hopefully, as Weldon said, they can just keep it close. If they won the game, it would be an absolute miracle in my opinion. But if they can keep it close and play well, they're going to be looking really nice down the stretch. They've won 3 games in a row and 5 out of their last 6. So they keep it respectable there. Then you've got Georgia and Mississippi at home before closing out against Alabama. I'm not sure that if they won 3 out of their next 4, that I guess that would get them to what, 21 and 10, excuse me, going into the SEC tournament. I think they could win 2 and be in consideration. They don't have to win the whole thing.
Yeah. Coach Davis, he said they had to win. I don't think they have to quite get there. If they beat 2 decent people in the SEC tournament, I think they can get in.
Win 2 games or even get to the final and lose it. That would pretty much solidify it, in my opinion. But they're right there on the cusp, and we're getting the cart way ahead of the horse right now. They could go out and get smoked by Kentucky and then lose the rest of the game. We don't know. But this is kind of the way it
Mike
goes.
Anderson now.
Get him get him out there right now. That's what a lot of folks would be saying. A lot of folks are saying that anyway.
Yes.
All right, we got no time left today. We'll be back on Wednesday at 11 o'clock for Weldon and Maddie. I'm Mark saying so long, and join us again on Wednesday, rivervalleyleader.com at 11 o'clock.